Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Claire Markwick, and this is Real Life Business. Hello and welcome to episode number 10 of Real Life Business. This week, I am speaking with Rachel Torrealba. Rachel was a full-time language teacher for 15 years, but in 2009, following a difficult separation from her first husband, she struggled with depression and isolation from her daughters and found it difficult to return to full-time work. She began searching for a home-based business that was flexible and allowed her time for healing and personal growth. Between 2013 and 2018, Rachel started 2 businesses and met her new husband, Dean. In 2018, Rachel and Dean purchased their 2,000 square metre block and relocated a 1920s Federation home to commence a new venture, Collector Cottage, a micro-flower farm and a couples retreat B&B at their property in Collector, New South Wales, just 30 minutes north of Canberra. In this raw and honest conversation, Rachel speaks of her decision to leave her career and of the lessons that she's learnt, both personally and professionally, after reaching what can only be described as breaking point. We join the conversation with Rachel talking about the power of reflection off the back of recently celebrating her 50th birthday. Now, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on the show. You've recently had a big birthday, I understand, the big 50.
I have.
Congratulations. I know I turned 40 in November, and big birthdays are a real good time to reflect, aren't they? And just sort of say, right, where am I? What am I doing? What have I learned? Where am I going? Is that something that you spend a bit of time doing this year?
Oh, definitely. I think every decade, I think I've certainly done that. And turning 50 has just really brought about a whole different way of seeing things. As a girlfriend said a little while ago, she had turned 50 as well before me, and she said, "I'm not even saying it as I'm turning 50. I'm getting to that level 5. I've gotten to the next level." So yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. And you're from chatting to you and knowing you, your past is really quite varied, isn't it? You've gone from full-time career to multiple different businesses to where you are right now. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that journey?
Yeah. So I left school, started uni. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to become a teacher. So I did exactly that, and got a job straight away teaching languages. So while a lot of my colleagues were still sort of doing some casual work, I knew where I wanted to be headed, and I got that job, and I loved it. I loved it for 15 and a half years, and then
Wow.
after that went part-time, and did casual work, and went from being high school teacher to being a primary teacher, and I really did all of that. But as much as I loved it, it got to a point where I could see that I wanted to do something different, and I didn't want to become one of those stale teachers that just stayed in the job because it was safe.
Yeah.
So I left, and it was scary, definitely scary. And it took me a long time after that to really sort of find my ground. I did a little bit of beauty therapy, work from home, and that was working really well while I was in Canberra. And then went into really going into the spiritual side of things, and reflecting on me and where I was, and did Reiki. So that was a great little business. But moving out to Collector really was an eye-opener as far as from the business perspective, because I didn't have the flow of people coming through that I used to. I mean, I wasn't central anymore, and I really had to reevaluate where I was at and what I was going to do.
Yeah.
I'm a big meditator, so for me, a lot of the answers really come through, just spending that time, in silence, whether it's, just sitting there with a herbal tea or going out into nature and, going for walks, just taking in what's around me.
There's
So I
so
really,
much power in that, isn't there? Sorry, just to
yeah,
interject
yeah,
and
yeah.
cut you off mid-flow, but I 100% resonate with that. People who know me, family, friends, clients, colleagues listening to this know that I work at a million miles an hour. It really, I'm always on the go, and I have been known in the past when I'm at a roadblock or when I'm at a crossroads, I just keep pushing and try and get through. But what I've learned, what I'm learning as I'm getting older, is that there's no point doing that, is there? There's no point keep pushing, doing more and more and more of the same thing. We've got to stop, and take a moment, whether that is literally a moment, drinking a cup of tea, like you say, or going for a walk, or it might be more of a big stop, like leaving a career and having a reset there. But there really is value in stopping, isn't there?
Oh, definitely. I think one of the most recent things actually that I've learned is that as having turned 50, things start to change. I'm not as quick and fast as I used to be, but nor do I want to be. I'm happy to slow down, and here's the trick, is to actually stay in that space. And even though there's some discomfort in that, there's certainly growth. And for whatever the situation might be, whether someone's trying to rush you through something, is to actually go, no, stop and just have a think about that. Is it absolutely necessary for me to be so rushed and, to have that flow on effect? Or am I going to just step back and go, right, I'm okay just taking this slowly. And, whatever, whoever's there in front of you is to just be patient and kind of, it's a really good thing because it slows them down as well. And they may not be aware of that, maybe subconsciously, who knows, but it actually turns out to be really good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I love that sort of mirroring thing, became really, really apparent to me. It's sort of something we learn in our coaching studies. But a couple of years ago, I got the flu really bad and I completely lost my voice. Like it's never happened before. I've always had a sore throat and been a bit husky, but literally for 3 days I could not talk at all, and it was getting really frustrating. But I noticed the whole volume in our house just dropped because I wasn't yelling from one room to the next. I was going into the room where my kids were or where my husband was, and in the shops even, when my voice started to come back, I was sort of like this, and people were whispering back to me, and then they'd be like, I don't know why I'm whispering. It's really funny, isn't it? How we can, like, we'll totally match the energies of people around us. So when we slow
Definitely.
down and calm down, everything around us slows down and calms down as well.
It's a good thing, and laughter's a good thing too.
Yes, yes, I do a lot of that. Maybe nervous laughter sometimes, I don't know.
Yeah, that can happen too.
So tell us about what you do now.
So now I've completely sort of shifted and coming out to collector. I'm on 2,000 square meters. So I'm not an acreage. I'm in town, but it's more than enough land for me to grow flowers and run some workshops, and trying to really learn. I'm also in that learning process of finding out more about regenerative farming and green manures and how that's going to improve the land. So there's in a simple way, there's lots of weeds or lots of plants that can actually take from the soil, but if you can put back into the soil, and that can actually improve the soil, so that for example, I've just planted for spring flowers, annuals, it will benefit the flowers that I have. So it's a wonderful. I've realized that everything that I've done until now has brought me there's always a benefit to that, has brought me to the space where I'm at. That without it, I wouldn't have been the person that I am, and I wouldn't have been able to have the skill set to be able to do what I'm doing. So
I
it's
think
really interesting.
I love that. I think that's such a great learning, isn't it? Because I know for me through I had 15 years in accounting and finance before I was ready for a break. And so that sort of that time, that tenure in a career that we've studied for, we've gone to uni for, we've put a lot of work and we've put a lot of effort in. I completely relate to that. And I also relate to the fact that when we get to a point where, exactly like you say, like it starts to feel a bit like Groundhog Day, and that passion's gone and that energy's gone. And I know for me, I felt like, I mean, what was I at the time? I was in my early 30s, early mid 30s. And I thought, I can't quit this now. I can't leave this now because I've spent so long learning and studying and gaining experience and getting better at what I do. Like, that's such a waste. Did you have that as well? I mean, you've sort of learnt from what you've just said, you've learnt that it's not a waste, but did you have those feelings at that time as well?
Yes, I did. I thought that I needed to be in the career that I had forever,
Mm,
and following on to what I guess a lot of other people have done in the past, right? Because you think, well, if that's what's meant to happen, then that's what I need to do. And I realized that it didn't. It took a long time. I think it took a really long time to sit with that and be okay with it. That
mm,
it didn't mean that I was failing. It didn't mean that it was going to go to waste, and that I could do something different, and I could do something different in my 40s.
yeah.
Because yeah, you think, oh well, surely I can't. Surely my brain's not going to be able to take in all the information I need to take in, and it wasn't like that at all. So I'm I got to say it's been challenging at times, but it's been so good because genuinely I know that I wouldn't have been happy if I had continued down that path,
Mm,
and having all these, wonderful new things that I was learning, I could then put them into practice here. So
yeah.
yeah. Look, I think fear stops a lot of people, and it could have been, there were moments when I just felt like, oh, maybe this isn't the right thing, and doubted myself. And I think that's just such a normal process,
Oh, 100%.
that to talk about it is really important because, I think so many of us go through, if you're going through this process, you think you're on your own, you think you're the only one, you think that no one else is going to feel that way. And in fact, it's not like that at all. So
100%. That was a big part of the drive behind launching this show, actually, because there's so many people that I network with, in terms of colleagues and clients, and as I say, friends, family members, and we all go through the same sort of stuff. I say that we all have shit. we
yes.
all have stuff going on. We all have pasts. We all have family problems. We all have money worries. We all have health scares. There's stuff that happens all the time, yet when it happens, we can feel like we're the only ones going through it. And that there is, I believe, I don't know if you agree, that particularly as women, we can feel that we've got to put this front on, this brave face, that, we've got to just power through this for to keep everyone else together. And we probably don't spend enough time taking care of ourselves going through those sorts of times, do we?
Definitely. Oh, yes. It's I think you go through stages, and you don't always know the answers, but somehow it falls into place. It really
Mm,
does. Um, I have, yeah, I've definitely felt the tiredness, and felt like from a teaching background that you needed to be on show, because
mm,
there were moments that you'd walk into that classroom. And so having that pattern of, putting on that act for kids because you're there for them and you're there for the service, before you even put yourself first, you can easily fall back into that pattern.
yeah.
So actually saying to yourself, no, okay, I won't. That's my go-to thing in the past, but actually say, no, this is what's happening, and I accept that. It's not always going to be. I love this word, perfect. I don't. I always say it's just like things aren't perfect, are they? We make
our
mistakes. We're
7-year-old is
human.
like, whenever I let that word come out, my 7-year-old always corrects me. He's like, "There's no such thing as perfect, Mum," and I'm like, "Yes, that's right. Teach
How
it back to
wise,
me."
so young and saying that. That is so good. That is really good.
Yep. No, I 100% agree. And I think you made an interesting point before, like you said, when you were teaching, no matter what was going on in your world, and this is certainly true for me as well, in terms of when I'm coaching or when I'm facilitating, no matter what's going on in my world, I have to leave that at the door. When I walk in and I'm in front of a group of people presenting a training, or when I click on the Zoom button and I've got a client in front of me on a call, I'm there for them, like you were for your students. There's a difference though, isn't there? There's putting our stuff aside and doing our job, but that it's when we do that all the time that it can lead to a problem, isn't it? I believe. You're sort of nodding away. Do you agree?
Yeah. That's really important, isn't it? That all the time.
Yeah.
I think when you've learnt that lesson, it is so good to be able to pick up on it's those little things that add up, and you can start to sense. And once you know yourself that, okay, anxiety's up. Certainly I'm very open about, sharing my story about how, I went through a breakdown. It took a breakdown for me, nervous breakdown for me, to realize, okay, this is, it can't get any worse than this. Well, in that moment, and where do I go from there? And actually seeing, all right, what do I need to do? And what are the signs that are showing me that I need to slow down, I need to stop? And once you've got something that works for you, and we're all different, right? So, but figuring out what will work, it's a sense of having control, but also to know that it's going to be okay. It will be okay, because you've got something in a plan to go ahead. And yeah, it's, for me, like I was saying, meditation is really important. Taking that time to just be on your own, being quite introverted myself, and then but also having that connection with people, but knowing that balance, and knowing when, okay, if it's been too many days of the same thing, and sort of like you're saying, pushing yourself to that limit and saying, all right, that's enough. That's as far as I can go. And now I'm stepping back.
I think that self-awareness piece is something that I work really, really strongly on in myself and in the work that I do with my clients. And I was talking to somebody just the other day about the whole introversion extroversion thing, in as much as, I think I get the perception that, people will call themselves an introvert or an extrovert, and we're not one or the other. We certainly have a preference one way over the other, but we've got both tendencies within us. And I think what you just touched on there is perfect. It is about balance. And so for someone like yourself, who's leading more on that introverted side, that you get your energy, and your recharge time comes from you. But if you did that all of the time, it could start to result in a downward spiral, and we need a little bit of social interaction, don't we, or interaction with other people to perk us up. And I'm completely the opposite, in as much as I know that I need people around me. I need to sort of be around people to get my energy. But at the same time, if I do that all the time and I have no quiet time to inwardly reflect, then I'll probably self-destruct.
Let me tell you something really funny. So I have 5 chickens, and they all have names, and they definitely are a part of of the family. So
100% hear you. My chickens are part of our family too.
You certainly understand me.
Yep.
So, they'll never be cold or anything like that. We love their eggs. We love, the energy they bring. And they all have their different personalities and characters. But I always say, when I've been talking to the chickens too much, it's time to go and speak to the people. Oh, it's true. And I think, you often say things to yourself, and it's like, Rachel, I think it's time to just go out there and talk to others, because you're talking to the
Find a
chickens like
human.
you go crazy. So yes.
But they're so funny, aren't they? We've got Australorps and Wyandottes and Anconas. We've got a bit of a mixture. And our Australorps, there's two in particular who love bread. They just will do anything for bread. And I'm teaching them to jump, and it's just hilarious.
Oh, wow.
I stand there. I used to crouch down and break off little bits of bread, and they'd come and get it from me. And then I just started holding it just that little bit higher, and they'd reach up like this. And now they'll jump for it. And my 10-year-old was like, "Are you training chickens to do tricks?" As in, like, are you okay? Have you had enough human interaction?
Even that in itself is it's actually really soothing. It's entertaining, yes. It's just really, it's so good for us.
100%. I am a big believer in knowing what success looks like for us. And I've talked about it in a few of these episodes already. I bang on about it to my clients all the time, knowing what success looks like for us. And part of success for me is having a business that allows me the time to go outside and potter around, spending time with my chickens. I don't want to be on the road all the time in the cities, or like, I want to be here in the countryside with my chickens and my family, obviously.
Yes. I hear that loud and clear. It's like, for me, being here, I always say I love what you said about success and what that's like. Because for me, I would say I'm living the dream. And gratitude is a big part of my life, because I am so very grateful. I'll get up in the morning, and the first thing I do is get up and go and walk towards the kitchen, and I very deliberately put the kettle on, and I have a lovely cup, that says, "I love you to the moon and back." That you might be able to see, because I happen to just serve myself a tea. And it's just so important, that replenishing. But I look out the window, and I see my beautiful flowers, which at the moment, are actually dormant, because we're going into that winter phase. But they're just, and that's a part of it, but just seeing the beauty in everything, and just looking out, and it might be a bird that might be coming past. It could be seeing the chickens, it could be anything, but I always say there's something new that I can take, and I can just be grateful for. It really is special. Yes.
It is. And it sounds, I don't know, like, it sounds so simple, doesn't it? Like, I remember when I first went into business, and I've been working, advising and working with small businesses for years now through my accounting career. But I remember sort of when I sort of diverted into coaching and business coaching, I was like, there's got to be something more. There's got to be some like magic strategy that creates success. Like, I've got to learn what that is so I can teach people that. And over the years I've been doing this, I'm like, there isn't some complex, convoluted, like step-by-step process or whatever. It's the simple things, isn't it? It's how we manage ourselves, how we learn, how we replenish ourselves, what we're grateful for, and focusing on those kinds of things gives us the headspace to focus on the business decisions we need to make, and serving our clients, and growing beautiful flowers for our customers, isn't it? Like, it really is that simple.
It's really interesting you said that, because every year I'll pick a word, and my last year's word was simple. And I picked it because I realized that having so much going on, and starting with technology, and everything that can surround us, if if we don't have those boundaries, it just can really overwhelm us. And I was previously feeling that way. It was just like, oh, there's just too much to choose from. So I picked that word, and yes, it's interesting how we can do a full circle, and then, you know, really do the go-getter. I really want to go down this career path that, you know, in the past I had, but then doing that full circle, seeing that, wow, there is so much in that simplicity that things just start to fall into place too. And look at your life and you think, wow, that's, yeah. And if you can work that out, I think it's a really good place to be.
100%. 100%. Do you feel that sort of as you've grown through life and gone through the hurdles and the obstacles that you have, do you feel that anything has changed in you in terms of what you try and control? Does that sort of make sense? You know, I think I remember certainly back in my 20s, I like to feel like I was in control of everything. I needed to know exactly what was happening by when, and, you know, what that led to, and certainly having kids broke me of that to some extent. But I think it's something I'm still learning now, you know, as I'm in my 40s now. I think it's something I'm still learning but getting better at, in as much as just let things go, have faith that things will work out, or if they don't, at least I know I'll be able to handle it. You know, you're nodding away to this, so I feel that you resonate with what I'm saying.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but
no, you're a level up to me, so
I can, yes, I can definitely say so that you can certainly get to that point where you think that you're controlling everything, and like going back to what I was saying about, you know, having that nervous breakdown. I think certainly I was trying to control everything around me. Even while I was going to school and finishing school, right, I'm going to go to uni. I had the next 20 years worked out. I knew how things were going to go, you know, get married, have kids. And oh goodness, does life have a way of showing us that it's not necessarily like that at all, you know? And I went through a divorce. You know, I went through parent alienation with my children, with my two girls, and I'm quite open about talking about that. You know, in fact, I even wrote a book about it. So, you know, my personal experience of being, you know, completely down and suicidal to living a real fabulous life, and that it, you know, there is hope, that it is possible for those people that, you know, that crosses their mind. So yeah. Oh, look, I think that's all part of life, though, you know, these experiences that we go through, and that when we try and control things too much, it's backfires. Yeah.
Gosh, what was it that got you through those really dark times? What do you think was the biggest thing that pulled you through?
I think it was having the support of those people around me that love me. It sounds really simple, but it's so important, and to also accept help. You know, we were just discussing this with a girlfriend yesterday, how important it is to accept the help and to say, look, you know, I actually am struggling at the moment. I need some help. And that coming from, you know, a background where, you know, you're all there about giving yourself service and helping others isn't easy to do, but it's just so good to be able to accept it and then say, you know, thanks to that, I'm in a completely different place, because it could have gone the other way. So yes. Yeah. And to talk about things too. So
yeah.
like we are now. I think we don't know, but this could definitely help someone that might be in that situation right now.
That's exactly right. And thank you so much for being open to share, because that's exactly what I wanted to get from that answer there. You know, what was it? What did you have to draw on? What did you really rely on in that situation? And like we talked about before, it's not complicated. It's simple, isn't it? It's the love and the support of the people around us, accepting that and asking for help. And then being willing to and being able to accept that help as well, and not put meaning to the need to ask for help, not putting the meaning to it that means we're less or we're not worthy or any negative connotation. It's strength and courage, isn't it, that we draw on to ask for help.
Yes, it's being vulnerable. It then that allows you to become so resilient, and that, you know, things can spiral down or up so quickly. So but to have been there and to now be in a completely different place, it's also that hope, because when you're in that space, you never feel that you can ever get out of that. And you know, that mindset of where you're at. And of course, you know, I was so ill. I can say that now because I couldn't see it back then. But that's okay, because that's part of, you know, of life as well. We're not always okay. We're not always healthy and happy. And you know, like the picture that we sometimes see painted in, you know, in social media or wherever it might be. Yeah.
I think that's a really, really good point too, because even coming through a really dark patch like that, and everything being great now, you know, a loving new husband, a beautiful property, beautiful business, something that you're really passionate about doing, there's still ups and downs, isn't there? Like we can't expect life to be literally, in your case, a bed of roses all the time.
Oh, that's really well said. Yeah.
Boom. How many flower puns can we get in?
Yes. Yeah, no, that's so true. You know, I'm going to say that there are days that are still gloomy and that are sad, and that it's okay that that's where I'm at, you know. But it's there's a wonderful app called Insight Timer, and it's, you know, meditation, but there's all sorts of things which you can download for free, and that's really helpful. Sometimes it's just those 5 minutes, and, you know, something that might be guided and just listening. It just can really sort of lift you. For anybody that might want to, you know, look for something that, you know, some sort of help.
Yeah. I have heard of that. I have it's one I've dabbled with and had a go at, so I know the one you mean. And there's also I think that's the one where there's just sort of, you literally can set a timer, and it just sort of, there's real gentle sort of gongs and dongs and things like that, and just literally 2 or 3 minutes just focusing on nothing, wondering when the next gong's going to come. You know, it can just clear just clear us, can't it, and reset us. I think things like that are so powerful. I have to say, I'm not a huge meditator, and I think I downloaded that app to try and sort of test it out and get into it. I'm like, I don't know whether this is for me. But that's what you said earlier, isn't it? That refueling, that thing is going to be different in all of us. And for someone who, say, has tried meditation and goes, no, that's not for me, that's not sort of the cue then to just keep going and pushing ourselves to the limit. It's like, okay, well, that didn't work for me. What else could I try?
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, it could be for someone, and then it may not, but it's about, not sort of pushing that aside and ignoring it, because that's what eventually, you know, it'll just be like a ball that just continues to, you know, add and add and add. And what's it called? Whatever that,
it's like a pressure cooker, isn't it? That pressure just keeps growing, building.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
There's only one way that it can stop building and that's to explode. And that's sort of what you experience and what we don't want people to experience, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
So what is it now, like with all that sort of rich tapestry of life experience and sort of now this trajectory, gosh, that was a choice of word.
That's a mouthful. Yeah.
This path that you're now on, that you're so passionate and energized about, what is it that keeps you going through those dark days? You know, what's that inner drive that keeps you taking one foot in front of the other?
I think it's knowing that that I'm where I'm meant to be, and just sort of taking a day at a time. That other big P word that is patience, because you always want things yesterday, right? Certainly I do.
Yep.
So it really is just about taking one day at a time, you know, and whatever that brings, and just being. I think I'm a lot more in control of the things that I need to get me to, you know, the next day. So that's always helpful. Yeah.
What's your something I've been talking about with some clients lately is the metaphor of the light at the end of the tunnel. You know, what's your light at the end of the tunnel? What's the next thing you're aiming for with Collector Cottage?
So interesting you say that, because I'm trying to actually stick to the journey part and really enjoying it. Because sometimes, and I'm going to admit to this, that I hate making mistakes. I hate it, but I do know that that's where the learning happens, right? That uncomfortable feeling that you've made a mistake, and that's been a bit of a learning one for me. But seeing sort of the light at the end of the tunnel, I think being creating what we've created here and what we continue to create, I can always see. And I'm quite a visual person, so I'm big on, you know, putting up photos and pictures on a board and actually seeing where that's taking me. I can see this beautiful place, this lovely garden, and, you know, the beds of flowers that eventually will mature and will actually be a lot like ourselves, if you think about it, because we're connected to nature, we're part of nature. So seeing that, you know, that beautiful garden that has aged, you know, and that's kind of what I see. And I don't. It's interesting because as much as I enjoy that, it's not really just about me. It's about being able to share that with other people. And I look at the way that we're reducing, you know, we seem to be building a lot more apartments, and people are living in this space where unfortunately they don't always get a chance to be, you know, even have a little patch of green or something to sort of connect with, or they don't know how to. That's the other thing. They're sort of so involved in what they might be trying to achieve and not really looking at what they could do. I think that it's a possibility for other people to come out and enjoy it and just, you know, step into just even breathing the fresh air.
Yeah, 100%, to be that energy source to someone else.
Yes.
To make it bigger than yourself. That's awesome. What do you've clearly, we've spoken a lot about the lessons that you've learned and the things that you've put in place now to sort of help you regulate you and manage yourself to be the best person that you can be, to then create the best business that you can. What are some of your non-negotiable rules? What have you learned about yourself? What are those boundaries that you've put up to go, no, this is not happening, or this has to happen?
Yeah. So one of them is time for myself,
Mm.
really, really filling the cup, so replenishing me. So, for example, um, after I get up in the morning, like I said before, and make that cup of tea, I'll go to the gym 3 times a week, and that for me means driving into Canberra and then back. It might mean that I've got other things during the day that I'll have to do, which might seem like, okay, that's a long drive, to and fro maybe 4 times, but I so see the benefits of that afterwards.
Yeah.
So I spend some time at the gym with a girlfriend, um, and that really sort of sets my day. And when I'm not doing that, because that might be 3 times a week, but the other days it's also about just taking that time for me, and that might be just, I don't know, sleeping in. It could be reading a book. It might be listening to a podcast, it might
Talking to
be
the chickens.
that as well. Yeah, yeah. Just watching nature, the birds, the flowers, the little thing that might have changed from the weather pattern of having, I don't know, frost, for example, that we've recently had, and just seeing how a flower might have been, really strong in color, and all of a sudden you're seeing all this frostedness coming all around it. And just appreciating the beauty of how things change. And
And
I know that seems so simple. Again, it's that simple word, but it's just so pretty.
yeah, it is, and it's so important, isn't it? But I think that using nature as a metaphor for life, is we see that a lot, but you've actually got so much all around you, as I do here. And like you just said, to see a flower that one day is just in its absolute prime, then it gets, say, knocked with frost, or a pest comes through, and it sort of loses its spark. I guess then in time we see it come back again, don't we? And there's so much learning from that, in as much as it really does show us that we can't be 100% on it all the time. Sometimes things knock us, sometimes things set us back, sometimes things zap our energy, and we have to kind of go into this hibernation mode, and we might have to drop some petals, and we regrow and we replenish. It's
All that we have to, a big one for me is seeing, for example, how flowers sometimes in the middle of winter, you've got this beautiful rose, but that rose wasn't actually growing then. So, where did that come from? And seeing, like what we were saying, seeing that deterioration of that flower, and then not having that. We'll take the dahlias that I've just finished off with. Absolutely beautiful. But there's something lovely about not having it for the next few months, and then seeing it back again in December, January. There's something beautiful about that. It's appreciating things at the right time, when nature has produced them, and not something that might be
forced or manufactured, or
yes.
Yeah. Oh, what a beautiful, calm place to leave it. I love it. How can people get in touch with you if they want to find out more about your accommodation, your flowers, what you do? Just get in touch and share their story with you. How can someone get in touch with you?
So definitely through Instagram and Facebook. So under Collector Cottage, and also via email. So rachel@collectorcottage.com.au.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. We'll put the links to those in the show notes to this episode, so it's really, really easy for someone to click on. Now, are you ready for some quick fire fun?
I sure am. I don't know about the quick part, but definitely I'm ready for the fun part.
I think every single person has said that. It's like, how quick fire does it need to be? I'm like, it's all good. We'll just extend the conversation. It's all good. So tell us, what are you reading at the moment?
So I actually am to no surprise, I read really slowly. So I tend to read maybe 2 or 3 things at once. I'll read something a little bit and then I'll get bored of that and then I'll come back to it later, but I'll read something else.
Yes,
So
I
I'm
do that
reading
too.
Discovering Dahlias by Erin Benzakein from Floret. And that book has just taught me so much. She's like the queen of the flowers.
Oh,
And for those that might not know, but it's a very colourful, beautiful book, but there's so much learning and just really simple in the way that they've explained things. I'm reading You Are Enough by Kathy Mendoza Jones. That was gifted to me for my birthday.
nice.
Great book, yeah.
That
And
sounds like
I'm also, yeah, I'm also a believer that, you know, things kind of come to you for a reason.
when you
And
need
that
them.
day,
Yeah.
yeah, well, that day I received that gift, and then I also received some cards from a friend as well. And the title is You Are Enough. And I thought, oh, well, obviously the universe is trying to tell me something.
Have faith in yourself, Rachel.
And the last one is Everlastings by Bex Partridge. This is all about dry flowers, you know, and, you know, talking about, well, we've got the fresh flowers, but then come this season and winter where we can still appreciate them, but just in the dry form. So learning about how to put them together and yeah.
Oh, fabulous. Sounds very exciting and a good blend of reading material there. What about a song? What's a favorite song of all time?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to show my age now. So I love Shania Twain's From This Moment On.
Yes.
So we had that song in for our wedding, but more than the love for each other, what I love about that song is the love that I have for me. First, I started loving that song then it's kind of transcended, but you know, that song really, you know, those moments that really click in your life and you realize that, you know, all this love that you had for everybody else, but the love has to start from yourself, because if you don't have that for yourself, how can you give it? And I'm sure that might sound a bit cliche because people would have heard that before, but it's just the message that, you know, sometimes we need those reminders.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I know the song you mean, and I have not thought about it in that regard before. And now you're making me want to go on YouTube it after we finish talking. Maybe we'll put the link to that in the show notes of this episode as well.
Wonderful.
So tell me about a quote that's changed your life.
Yeah, okay. So a couple of years back, I love Brene Brown. I've read her books, and I love this one because it says it takes courage to say yes to rest and play in a culture where exhaustion is seen as a status symbol. So the whole idea about that is really to, you know, we I don't know if you've heard it, but certainly I've heard my parents, you know, my grandparents, you know, because if you work hard, you know, you're just they're just so proud of you, and it's seen as such, but it can go overboard as well. So I take this quote as when things go over the other line, and I think there's a lot of that in society.
I think you're absolutely right. And it ties in so nicely with what we've been talking about, isn't it? And there's another P word there, in as much as permission. We need to give ourselves permission to stop, to not see busy and exhaustion and hustle as a status symbol, as a sign of success, because it's not. And, you know, if my husband listens to this episode, he'll probably be smirking in his seat, but, you know, he's like, well, why don't you slow down then? And, you know, and then this is what I mean. I'm putting my hand up. You know, this is one of the things that I know I still need to spend time on myself and work on and grow and develop. But yeah, and like you said with the song, it takes reminders, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. And I'm trying to create that in my own business, because it really is a reflection of, I've certainly put up my hand as well, because that's where I've been before. And sometimes I catch myself doing, you know, overdoing it and then going, oh, hold on, am I going to feel guilty now about resting? No, I won't. And so I'm trying to really create that. Like, we've got a lovely little B&B, which is at the back of our house, a little cottage. And I've tried to really create that sense of calmness and, rest, so that people come into that space. All of the colours, they're all soothing colours, and to really try and create that space of, that it's okay to rest and not feel guilty because you're resting. It's part of that permission that you're saying.
Exactly. It's part of the process. It's part of the personal growth. It's part of the business growth. We've got to stop sometime. It's okay.
Part of life, and it's just so nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's nice.
It is. I have to admit, when I can go and train my chickens to jump for bread, it does feel kind of nice. What is a piece of tech that has changed how you do business? I'm curious to hear your answer to this one.
So, not being very tech savvy, it's just so simple now. I love the Square app because it's allowed me to have some cashless sales at my farm stall, and not have to carry around all this cash. That with COVID and it's just really changed the way that we do business as well. So it's just so much easier.
It's amazing, isn't it, where the world is going? My boys had their athletics carnival yesterday and they needed cash for the canteen. I'm like, I don't have any. I'm looking through hubby's wallet. I'm like, we don't have any. I'm like, boys, have you got any money in your piggy banks? Can we use your own money and I'll pay you back? So we're going so cashless, aren't we? I'm like, how is that going to work for kids? We're going so cashless with things on our phones and our cards, aren't we? Like, we need to evolve that for the kids too. For school canteens. I'm not scrapping around for 50 cents here and there.
Well, I definitely know that juggling, trying to put, a lot of the people that pass by Sydney siders, and so they've got to travel that extra distance. So it's placing, for example, making sure that the flowers are in some sort of water vessel to take. So just doing all of that wrapping in itself, and taking the flowers out of water, but then, just placing them into something quite nice for them to take. Can you imagine that? And then having to deal with the whole cash side of things, it's just so much easier. So
I love it.
Love that invention.
You have left us with so much gold already, but leave us with a life hack to end on.
Yeah. It's a bit of a metaphor one. So I believe that not everything that you plant survives. And this doesn't necessarily mean that you've done something wrong. Because when I first started planting things, being out here, you don't just plant one, you've got to plant 5 or 10, okay? Because just the size of it. And sometimes things, oh goodness, the first time I planted kangaroo paw and I had about 8 of them and they all died, all of them, which was so discouraging. But then as I, learned along the way, it had a lot to do with where they were positioned and, they didn't have enough sun and, so on. But to give that a bit of a twist, it's looking at that and then thinking, not everything in life that you do will work out, but it's definitely a stepping stone to where you want to go next. And I think about those plants and it's the same thing.
Yes, that is brilliant. I love it. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
I feel
share it with people.
That I cannot wait for this episode to go live. I mean, it's been such a valuable conversation. At the start, we were talking about matching energies, and I certainly feel much calmer just through this conversation of talking to you. So thank you. I'm going to go and now make myself a cup of tea and just have a chill 10 minutes.
I love that.
So
Excellent.
as a reminder, we'll leave all your links in the show notes to this episode so everyone can find them there. And yeah, thank you. It's been a fabulous conversation.
It sure has. I hope that it really can help someone who's listening along the way. So yeah, thank you.
100%. And that's a wrap for episode number 10. Thank you so much for listening, and to Rachel for trusting me to share her personal journey from breakdown to breakthrough with you all. What did you love about this conversation? For me, I love the awareness that whatever we decide to do, it doesn't have to be forever if we feel that it's no longer serving us. I know this is something that I personally battled with internally, thinking that I couldn't possibly leave a stable career in my mid-30s. I was thinking, like, what a waste. But like Rachel said, nothing is a waste, because everything becomes a stepping stone for the next adventure and the next evolution of our life or our business. Again, and this is becoming a recurring theme here, you might have noticed that I love Rachel's point that we need to have faith that we can't always control everything, and that's okay. Even in the really dark moments of going through a difficult divorce and being alienated from her girls, Rachel had to find the courage to believe that she would be okay being out of control, and that was helped by the love and support of those around her. And there's another great theme that's emerging from all of these conversations: the importance of a solid support group around us. We don't have to go through anything alone, and I'd encourage anyone listening to this who feels alone or confused or overwhelmed right now to just reach out. Reach out to someone, a friend, a colleague, to me. All my contact details are in the show notes to this episode, because we are not alone. As always, you can continue the conversation on Facebook or Instagram and share what you have loved about this episode. And remember to hit that subscribe button in your podcast app of choice to never miss a new episode each Wednesday as it drops. That's all from me for now. Thanks again for listening. I will be back in your ears very soon, and until then, bye-bye.